which released WWE superstars are joining Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary 2021 is the video for you today here on SCW. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now, leave any comments in the comment section, please like and share the video as well. What is quickly becoming WWE's least favourite event of the year for us fans? That's right, I'm not talking about Fastlane, I'm talking about the WWE release. It seems to be mid-April now for the last few years, and the last couple of years in particular has been quite painful to see. Of course, if you look at last year, over 40% of WWE's working staff were released due to budget cuts in the pandemic, and of course the same thing has happened once again with talents being released from WWE. But when one door closes, another door opens, and Impact Wrestling has taken full advantage, showing that the landscape can change and making Slammiversary the place where it all begins again. Because superstars from WWE, they have a 90-day non-compete clause. Usually there has been rumours for this year that could be about to change, but of course the first show then they'll be eligible to be at another show or a big show is Slammiversary, just a couple of days after those 90-day non-compete clauses expire. Now, if you look at last year, Impact Wrestling brought in such talents as Eric Young, we saw EC3, and we got the likes of the Good Brothers, who were announced, of course, the day of Slammiversary. Arguably the biggest signings probably made as well, with Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. We got Heath involved as well, and I mentioned about those 90-day non-compete clauses. Superstars for NXT seem to have less time. Deonna Purrazzo actually joined before Slammiversary, and of course we got outsiders as well, the Motor City Machine Guns, of course not ex-WWE, but certainly making a return to the company, and of course quickly becoming the tag team champions. So a lot of star power came into there last year. Who is going to come into there this year? Well, let's go through all the WWE releases and give my opinions of whether I think they'll be joining Impact at Slammiversary this year, or if I think they'll be going somewhere else. Let's start with the Knockouts division, shall we? Or what could be potentially mini knockouts that could join the Impact roster. And let's start with the Iconics. For me, this one is a no-brainer. I've already done a video of why I think it's imperative that Impact sign the Iconics. Peyton Royce and Billie Kay have just got the right amount of charisma, the right amount of personality that would feel right at home in such a great roster of characters and personalities already in Impact Wrestling. Let's not forget as well that the Iconics are already made tag team, and Impact are crying out for more tag teams for those Knockouts Tag Team Championships. And as well, I think the Iconics versus Fire and Flavor would be a heck of a fun feud to watch in Impact as well throughout the summer season. So I hope this one happens. I think it's important that it does. The Iconics to Impact Wrestling, yes please. One though that I think is an absolute dead cert to happen. In fact, I'm so confident this one, I'm going to go on record and say this is an early prediction. Chelsea Green, aka Laurel Van Ness, will be a part of the Knockouts division once again. Her partner, of course, is Matt Cardona, who is already in Impact Wrestling. One of her best friends, Deonna Purrazzo, the current Knockouts champion. And let's not forget as well that Laurel Van Ness was a former Knockout in Impact Wrestling and a former Knockouts champion. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this one go down. In fact, I think this one is a cert. Laurel Van Ness, aka Chelsea Green, will be part of Impact once again. Mickie James. Well, Mickie James, right now we know that she's got the all-women's pay-per-view with NWA, so it looks like that she will be more invested in that, perhaps not a full-time member of the Impact roster if she was to come in. But the show is in Nashville, she is from Nashville, and if we look at the NWA pay-per-view, there's not enough women currently on that roster to make a show. So could we see some partnerships about to go down? Could Mickie James look to perhaps maybe the Forbidden Door with AEW, maybe with Ring of Honor, who've had previous working relationships with NWA, or could we even look towards the Knockouts division in Impact? She could come in at Slammiversary. Here's a bit of fantasy booking for you. Maybe she comes in, throws the challenge out to Deonna Purrazzo. We see a match at the NWA All Women's pay-per-view in Power, and then we see them have a rematch in Impact Wrestling. And one thing's for sure, if Hardcore Country does play at Slammiversary, you can guarantee your bottom dollar I will be singing along. I would be very happy if she was to come in, because she's been a former Knockout in Impact Wrestling, previous relations, a multi-time champion there as well. So yeah, Mickie James, it could tick a lot of the boxes and would be one I would be excited to see. Speaking of people who've already been in Impact, this one was a release from last year, but I do think she could become a permanent member of the Knockouts division because she's a great in-ring talent and a lot to offer. The Pride of Portugal, yes, I'm talking about Killer Kelly. I think she's a fantastic performer, and of course there has been rumours going around already that she could be returning to Impact Wrestling, so I think this one will happen. I do think she'll have a lot to offer that division. She could even potentially be someone that could be towards the top end of that Knockouts division. So I will predict that Killer Kelly will be at Slammiversary as an Impact Knockout. Next, let's talk about Thea Trinidad, aka Zelina Vega. Can you believe no company has taken her? She's been actually out of work now since last year, leaving WWE. I think it should be a shrewd signing for Impact if she was to come in. She's fantastic on the mic there, and her in-ring skills, there's certainly a lot of potential there. So I, for one, think that she'd be an asset to any division that she was signed to. I would like to see her as part of Impact, but what I would say at this point, if I had to predict, I don't quite see this one happening. I think she could end up in AEW, and there's another reason for it. I think that Aleister Black, when he eventually can sign for another company, could potentially be AEW bound as well. So that's my reasoning of why I don't think this one will happen. But Thea Trinidad, she has been a part of Impact before, so I wouldn't mind seeing it again. I think, like I say, she could be an asset. Next, let's talk about Vanessa Bourne. Of course, perhaps a very underrated talent, not been given any use in WWE. Did some good work in NXT as well. I think that if there's a space for her on the roster, I think she could be quite useful. I think actually she could be quite handy for the tag team division. Someone that could perhaps be a tag team partner could be Brandy Lauren, who did some great work in Evolve. Of course, also been recently released by WWE. I think that she could potentially be a star of the future. So these could be two people that Impact could look at and say, perhaps they're not the stars of today, but could be future stars of tomorrow. Could be two talents definitely worth looking into. But at this particular point, I wouldn't turn around and say these will be nailed on for Slammiversary, but certainly they could be useful for Impact somewhere further down the line. Let's move on to the men's division, shall we then? And we can't start anywhere else but Daniel Bryan. Now, can you imagine if this was to happen? Bryan Danielson in the Impact Zone. If that happened, that would be the biggest talking point of the whole weekend. It would be the biggest start by none. Now, of course, we have to be real with ourselves here. Daniel Bryan, he has left WWE. His contract did expire. He was written off TV. At the time of recording, there has been no word of him potentially re-signing at this particular point, even though it's what's expected. If Impact Wrestling could get this deal over the line, even for the short term, I think it would be monumental and it would be great for Impact Wrestling. Could you imagine Bryan Danielson against Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship? Wow, that is money written on paper for you right there. The pay-per-view buy rates would sell themselves. Think you'll get matches in the X Division, the likes of Ace Austin, Dashing Chris Bay, or even the current champion Josh Alexander. I would love to see all of those matches. They would be fantastic. Even if you could get Daniel Bryan on a short-term or part-time basis where he comes in for a handful of tapings and makes these matches in and recorded in advance even, it wouldn't matter. This would be awesome. Really, I think if it can happen, it would be brilliant, but unfortunately, I am wishful thinking here, and sadly, don't see it happening. But I think that it would be a big time move if they could pull this one off, if they're even looking to make this one happen. One, sadly, we know won't happen is Samoa Joe. If you watched NXT this week, of course, Samoa Joe has re-signed there with WWE and, of course, will be on the NXT banner. I was really hoping he'd be a part of Impact Wrestling, coming back to the defense of Impact after Kenny Omega shown such disrespect to the championship. But sadly, that one isn't to be, I'm afraid. But it would have been a big time play if Joe could have been there. But sadly, as I say, he's now back with NXT. But some that I think could happen. Let's look at the X Division. Kalisto, he's been released from WWE, and I think he would be a great asset to that division. A great in-ring talent, a lot to offer. Lucha Lit, if you want. I think there's some great athletes I've already mentioned in the X Division. Ace Austin, Dashing Chris Bay, Rohit Raju. There's so many great matches that can be had there. TJP. I think Kalisto would just be another one of what is already a great division with the X Division. It's currently on fire, and with a name like his added to it, it just gets better and better in my opinion. Next is Alexander Wolf, and we may not have to worry about the contract here on this one because his contract expired. So, I mean, he may not have to do a non-compete clause. We could see Alexander Wolf as soon as Slammiversary, and I think this one could have legs on it, and hear me out why. I think he'd be a perfect fit for Violent by Design. Now, I know they've already got 4 members. I don't think they should have more than 1 more member added, but I think Alexander Wolf would be perfect. He's got the right look, the in-ring style, the presence. I think Alexander Wolf would be fantastic for Violent by Design stable. And he's got previous history of working alongside Eric Young as well. Let's not forget the original Sanity, which Madman Fulton was actually a part of as well. But Alexander Wolf to be in amongst that stable, I think could really work. I really think this has legs. weeks, and I think it's one to keep an eye out for. So Alexander Wolf, for me, a shoo-in. I think he will go to Impact Wrestling. Another one I could see going in is Wesley Blake. Now, of course, he was part of the Forgotten Sons tag team, of course, along with Steve Cutler, of course, now Steve Macklin, of course, who now is in Impact Wrestling. So I can see this one working. I don't know if it'll be as a singles wrestler or a tag team wrestler. Of course, he's got previous experience, as I say, in the Forgotten Sons. Even with Buddy Murphy, who's been released from WWE, may not be able to appear as early as Slammiversary, but could be something further down the line. I'd keep an eye on this one. I think Wesley Blake in the Impact division could work, and I'd be interested to see how he would be booked, because certain superstars, where you turn around and say, like a Brian Myers if you want, completely reinvented themselves, done great work over the last 12 months in Impact. Wesley Blake could just be one of those, so I look forward to seeing what would happen if he was to come in. Mention out a shout out to Tucker as well. I mean, he's been released by WWE, former tag team member of Heavy Machinery, has done some training as well for the Performance Center to help younger athletes get to that next level, to get themselves ready for TV if you want. Tucker could be of good use to Impact, but I'm not sure if this one will happen. We'll have to wait and see. For me, I don't have much plans or ideas on this one, so this one we'll just see if he turns up, but certainly is one that you can't rule out. Another wrestler you can't rule out is Mojo Rawley. Now remember, of course, in WWE, he got hyped a lot. He was part of the Hype Bros with Matt Cardona, of course, what was Zack Ryder in WWE, so perhaps there could be a contact that gets him in. There's certainly some talent with Mojo Rawley. I just don't think WWE ever got the best out of it, and I wasn't really a big fan of the hyped gimmick. I kind of liked his heel runs a bit more, but at the same time, I don't think he was ever seen as a viable threat or a challenger to anything really prominent in WWE. But this one I think could happen for Impact, and perhaps Impact might get the best out of him, but certainly another one to keep an eye out for. Let's talk about Bo Dallas, shall we, next there. Former NXT champion there, the third ever NXT champion, I might add. There was a lot of promise at the early stage of Bo Dallas's career, but unfortunately, we didn't believe as much when he was moved up to the main roster, quickly going to obscurity. He was actually used in the Social Outcasts, he was a part of the Miztourage, even a part of the B team with Curtis Axel, of course, a tag team partner of his throughout his latter WWE days. Curtis Axel is not actually with a company right now after his release last year. Could they come in as a tandem? It could be something that could happen. I don't personally see it myself, even though I think there's a space for another tag team in the Impact division right now. I just have a feeling that these guys might actually go somewhere else if they were to go anywhere, but certainly it's another name, so we should talk about it. One more tag team I'm going to talk about is the AOP, the Authors of Pain. Now, there's been a lot of rumours about these guys recently. Have they retired? They responded saying they are not. And they're actually photoed with Paul Ellering as well. It just makes me wonder if they're going to come in somewhere. And I do think if there was one place they should come back to, it should be Impact Wrestling, in my opinion. I think they'd be booked really, really well in Impact. And I think they'd be a solid tag team, did some great work in their NXT days. Never really got the rub on the main roster, perhaps unlucky with injuries as well. But at the same time, if you look at Paul Ellering as well, their previous manager, their daughter Rachel Ellering is currently in Impact Wrestling, so maybe I've got 2 and 2 and I'm making 5 here, but at the same time I wonder, there could be something in this, and I would like to see it happen. I think there's room for another tag team on the roster. Why not make it the AOP? One last one I'm going to talk about now is a commentator. I don't think Impact really need a commentator at this point, but Tom Phillips is available, a very talented commentator as well. I'd like to see him somewhere crafting his trade, whether it's in in Impact or if it was AEW or anywhere really. I'm a big fan of Tom Phillips and his work. Matt Striker has been away, it seems, on the last couple of Impacts, so I've not seen as much of him. We've seen Josh Matthews come back in, but we did see a good partnership with Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown. But if they wanted to bring someone in that can fill in from here to there, or for another show, or for pay-per-views, or something like that, I would be a fan of seeing Tom Phillips of being that individual. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here because, well, forgive me, I've watched a lot of these sort of like Invasion style things recently. I'm doing WWE's Invasion as a retro rewind this weekend on the channel, doing that sort of retro review. Also been watching a lot of NWO. Wouldn't it be fun if all of the talents came in some sort of like outsider thing trying to take over Impact? I don't know, they can have their own voice as well with Tom Phillips. Just fantasy booking here, going completely off track probably, but certainly I think it would be fun. But to kind of go back into it, I think Tom Phillips would be great. He's a great commentator. Would like to see him somewhere. If there is a space in Impact, then for me, I think it's a no-brainer. I think you bring him in. Last but not least then, let's talk about the 6 releases, the more up-to-date releases if you want, because if the 90-day non-compete clause stands, none of these can be there at Slammiversary, so I think that makes it very quick and very sudden to answer that one. So we won't see Aleister Black, we won't see Braun Strowman, Buddy Murphy, Ruby Riott, Lana or Santana Garrett. But what I will say very quickly is that I do think there is a potential that 3 of these will go to AEW, and I think 3 of these could come to Impact. And the 3 that I think that could come to Impact, in my opinion, are Buddy Murphy. I think he'd be an asset to Impact Wrestling. I think not only would it be great for the X Division, this is a guy that could go for your World Championship, I think, with a bit of good booking, because Buddy Murphy, the best kept secret, I think that secret could be revealed if he was given a chance to shine, which I think in Impact he certainly would get. Santana Garrett, I think, is another one that potentially could happen as well. She's previous experience working with Impact Wrestling, and depending on that contract situation, she might not have that 90-day non-compete clause. She was rumoured to be going to debut on SmackDown, so that could be what stops things from happening, but she spent most of her time on NXT, and I think Santana Garrett would be an asset if she was to come back to Impact. I could see that or NWA personally if I was going to pick one for Santana Garrett. Last would be Ruby Riott. Now, for me, she's got the character work, the in-ring work. I think that she would go towards the top end of the Knockouts division if she was to go in. Liv Morgan said whoever gets her wins. That's what it is. That's how good Ruby is, and she's a very likable person as well. I personally would love to see her come to Impact. I think that she could end up in AEW as well, but at the same time, like I say, I would remain hopeful as we go towards, if you want, Bound for Glory season. On the build to that, that's where we can see some of these talents coming in rather than being at a Slammiversary. So that's all the names there for you there. Scott D'Amore clearly has a lot of work to do. One thing I can say there though, there's so much talent there, so much potential as well. I really don't think you can lose by bringing some of these names in. And of course, I'm sure there may be 1 or 2 other surprises that are not WWE releases that could end up a part of Impact as we go to Slammiversary. But to give my predictions then of these names are the ones that I think will be joining Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary at this stage, I will say the Iconics, because there is a shout they could go to AEW, because with Peyton Royce, of course, being with Shawn Spears, but I'm going to stick with me guns. I think they will come to Impact, so I'm going to go for the Iconics. I said Laura Van Ness, aka Chelsea Green. I think Mickie James will be there on a part-time or short-term basis to help build for that NWA Women's pay-per-view. I think Killer Kelly will come in, Kalisto, Alexander Wolf, Wesley Blake, Mojo Rawley, and I think the Authors of Pain is a real outside bet, but I'm going to go for them as well. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Who do you think will be joining Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary? Which of those WWE releases do you see actually coming in and changing the landscape of Impact Wrestling? It certainly is one of the most exciting pay-per-views of the year. I'm very much looking forward to it. Many videos will be dropping on the channel, Slammiversary related. You can already go and see now one I've got on there, why Impact Wrestling needs to sign the Iconics. You've even got some fantasy booking on how I would book them in the company as well. So go and give that video a check out now. Like I say, hit the like button, subscribe as well, turn the bell on, set all on notifications. Each and every time I release an Impact video or any other video, if you're into WWE, AEW or any of the sorts, to get yourselves involved here on SCW. And like I say, drop a comment. I look forward to interacting with you. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you next time here on SCW. Don't forget, the SCW Rewind this weekend will be dropping tomorrow, live stream, joined by Rated R for Wrestling as well as Non-Stop Wrestling Chat. We're going to be going over WWE's Invasion. It's coming up for the 20-year anniversary for that one, so we'll be talking about that show and giving our thoughts and opinions, looking back at it, and as well as that, Ask SCW Q&A will be dropping this Sunday. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one. I'll see you next time here on YouTube. All the best.